Hey everyone. So you've all heard of AI, I'm sure by now, and you may have seen there's all these awesome challenges about learning AI, and you also may have seen the amount of suite of tools that exist beyond just ChatGPT and DALL-E and some of these tools that you've seen already. There's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of AI-based tools or ones that say they're AI. But my guest tonight actually did the 100 Days of AI challenge, but he is also a expert in the world of AECO, and some of you actually probably know him very well. And so I'm super excited to introduce him to the show and talk about his 100 Days of AI, what he learned, some of the new tools he might have discovered, and then also I'm interested in seeing and hearing from his perspective through the same lens as us, which is the AECO, architect, engineer, contractor lens. So with that, let's jump in. This is episode 109 of BIM After Dark Live. All right, everyone. As I said, this is episode 109 of BIM After Dark Live. Thank you for joining us. If you're here live on Thursday night, April 18th, thank you for joining us. If you're in the chat, feel free to ask questions as we go along the way. And definitely, if it's your first time here and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel. This show is a weekly live stream video podcast, whatever you want to call it, where we talk about not just Revit, but technology and adjacent software to the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. My name is Jeff, sometimes known as the Revit Kid, and I'm super excited to chat today with our guest, who is Carl Storm. So without further ado, let's introduce Carl to the show. Welcome to BIM After Dark Live, man.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Of course. And a lot of people, actually, I think, Carl, you and I met probably many, many years ago at probably Built or one of the conferences. And so some people may be familiar with Carl. He also blogs at the BIMsider. For some reason, I always say BIM Insider in my mind, and that's why I even typed it, I think, initially. But it is the BIMsider, and he's got lots of great content. And so welcome to the show again. Maybe before we jump in, for those in the chat or watching this in the future who don't know who you are, maybe give everyone a little overview of who you are, what you do, and your interest in what we're doing today.
Sure. As Jeff mentioned, my name's Carl Storms, also known as the BIMsider. I work for Nuforma. Been in the AECO industry for, over 25 years now. I feel very old. But I'm architectural technologist by trade, but I've done a little bit of everything, commercial and residential architecture. Spent some time on the general contractor side doing BIM and VDC, taught Revit at the local community college. And before coming to Nuforma, I worked for Imaginet doing consulting all over North America, which the joke always is it made me nice and well-rounded, both figuratively and literally. But it gave me a lens in so many different ways of people working in the industry, good, bad, indifferent. And that's really helped me sort of open my eyes to the way things are done and get me interested in new things like coding and AI, as we're going to talk about today.
That's awesome. So being on the software side of it for a good portion of what you do, especially now, right? You said the last 20-something years. I think what have you seen as far as, or what are you hearing or seeing as far as the intrusion of AI on the developer side of what we do?
Yeah, that's interesting because for so many years, I was a big software user, and then for a while I was selling software, but actually being on the side for a little over 4 years now of a SaaS, a product that's built in the cloud, delivered in the cloud, you sort of see the idea of everybody kind of, the worry that AI is going to take their jobs. Well, I'll let you know a little secret, their jobs are safe. But it certainly helps with low-hanging fruit searches and being able to find things and being able to automate stuff that we sort of always knew was there. And I mean, really some of that stuff has been around for a while in what we would call no code tools, that have been around and we've used. But the long answer to your short question is I think that AI is definitely going to be beneficial on the software side. And I think people are going to really find value in it. It's just, it might not be where they think it is.
And I think you think that'll come with more of an understanding from folks of what exactly these tools are or how they work.
I do. And I think it's very similar to when, Dynamo came about in visual programming. And one of the things that everyone always said back then when it first came out was, this is not going to catch on. It's just for twisty towers. I don't know why they use that acronym, but the idea that things moved around and you could do geometry. But I'm sure, as you know as much as I do, there's lots of people in the industry that found value in the day-to-day stuff, the automation of tasks, and the things that you could do behind the scenes. Right. And yes, you can still do the twisty tower stuff. And I think AI will be the same. People will see the simple things that they can do that will improve their day-to-day. That's not necessarily reinventing the world. That'll be the big benefit.
Awesome. So let's talk about the challenge. So 100 days of AI. Maybe first, how did you hear of the challenge, and give everyone a little background on what exactly it is?
Sure. So complete fluke is how I heard it. It was just one of those things where I was on X or Instagram, I don't know which one particularly, and I just saw this little pop-up ad. Everybody's annoyed by the ads, but sometimes they're good.
Right.
And said, 100 days of AI challenge starting January 1st. I clicked the button, I put in my email, and sort of the rest is history. But what really sort of drew me to it is that the idea behind it is that it's 100 days of learning about AI. But the hook for me was that it was 30 minutes a day. So every day you get an email. It gives you a very well outlined, what are the tasks, what are you going to learn, what do you have to do, and a 30-minute timeline to make it happen. And that was the part that intrigued me, because it sort of tied into my newfound affection for micro-learning.
And it probably made it a lot easier to actually complete, right? If it was a 2 to 3 hour exercise daily, then it'd probably be a lot more challenging to actually do on a daily basis. So that's kind of neat. And so it was email delivery, and there was a bunch of there was exercises or something new every single day. So within that, was it a new tool every single day, or new AI tool, or was it could it have been the same tool or platform for a couple days in a row, or was it literally 100 different AI tools for 100 days?
So, no. That was the first thing that sort of bummed me out. Is that the 100 days, the first day is an email. This is what you're going to get.
Yeah.
But no, they work in gaps, which I guess makes sense. 100 days of being hard at it is probably going to cause some problems. So they have breaks. They have what they call shots of inspiration. So usually on a weekend they'll give you a recap of someone that did the challenge in the past. But there's a lot of new tools, and they did it in 3 phases. And if you're interested, I did blog on all 3 phases.
I'll definitely put links. I'll put links to not only the 100-day challenge, but also to your 3-phase blogs, and you have a Twitter roll with all your tweets from it. So I'll definitely put those links in the description for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But the idea was, the first phase was a lot like what you talked about. Just sort of, there's a new tool every day or almost every day, and it's just learning, something to do, like how to prompt inside of ChatGPT, things like that. And the second phase, you get a little deeper, so you get some more advanced AI tools, and there might be some repeats. And then phase 3, which was the bulk of the challenge of 60 days, they gave you missions. So you would get a mission on Monday, and you have a week to sort of complete it with a different task each day in the week. And then the weekend would be reflection. So on that phase 3, you got a little deeper into things, because you'd have multiple days to spend 30 minutes.
Right.
But you'd also have a lot more off time. So you weren't learning as much, in my mind.
Awesome. So I think what I want to do is, I think maybe initially let's talk about your overall thoughts or conclusions in a general sense of the tools, but also maybe what you think of AI now and all this stuff. And then I think maybe we'll take a quick break, and after that, maybe we'll dive into now through the lens of an architect, engineer, contractor. Maybe we can start retrospecting sort of that part of it. So I think initially, after you've gone through this, I don't know what I mean. Did you? I'm assuming before you started the challenge, you may have at least like played a little bit with like ChatGPT or DALL-E or a couple other tools, right? I mean, how much experience did you have with some of these tools before jumping in?
Yeah, a little bit, but mostly for me it was ChatGPT, playing with that. A little bit with DALL-E, but through an application called Night Cafe. But that was really it. So that I really was interested to learn more about AI. So that's what made me jump into it.
So then I guess at the end of it, but let's forget and again, for the audience, this is not 100 days of AI for architects challenge, right? This is a general AI challenge. So I think, again, I want to, let's explore it from the general sense, and then we'll explore it from the eyes of the architect. So in the general sense, I guess, what are your kind of key takeaways for the whole program, and then maybe some micro little pieces of it?
Sure. So I guess the overall takeaway from the whole thing was that I enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend it, and I would do it again. So that's sort of the takeaway. You definitely learn things you wouldn't expect to learn. So the first thing that everyone kind of expects is, I'm going to learn about AI, and you learn AI tools that you wouldn't learn any other way. So that was a big takeaway. But probably the next one is the fact that they teach you how to use things like ChatGPT. So how to do prompts, mega prompts, all sort of different ways that you do that. And it's amazing how much doing that, or a little bit of that every day, even if just for a couple minutes, and then kind of walking through it, how that teaches you how to do it, and you get better at it. It's just like us using Revit. After a couple years, things just happen. It's the same way when you learn how to prompt and how to interact with this AI, and you learn they have personalities just like we do. I don't know if we're supposed to say that, but there's different LLMs, large language models, and they act different ways to different questions, and you learn that.
So I guess then throughout this process, so I mean, and that's been my understanding of AI too. And I think I've said it in a couple of videos now where I've used some of the architecture-based AI tools like the Veras and the Glyph and so on. Is to me, that's probably one of the best skills that we can learn in general, and this is beyond architecture, it's probably just in life at this point in time, right? Is the having a better understanding of prompting and what that actually means and how that works. Because to your point, and I noticed it, I mean, I was just on, I think it was a bank website or something, and the chat box, like, it even said on the bottom, like, this is an AI chat bot you're talking to. And like, it felt like I was in ChatGPT talking to this, support on this bank website. So then I think that's great. I think that makes sense. And I think a lot of these tools probably build on that. So I guess one of my questions then, again, before we jump into the peeling the onion about sort of the architecture side of it, is what new tools did you discover that maybe you wouldn't have discovered before, and maybe you could see or already started using more and more in your general daily life, let's say?
Sure. So there was a couple of them out there that sort of popped out right away. There was one called Chat PDF, so just like ChatGPT, and this was a tool that was actually designed for students and learning. So it's doesn't have a fancy UI. It's fairly plain. But the idea is that you can upload a PDF, and then you can have a discussion with that PDF the same way you'd have a discussion with ChatGPT. And the nice thing about it is that not only does it sort of, you upload a document, you say, hey, what does spec 123 be? It doesn't only give you the answer, but it will take you to that location in the PDF. It will highlight it. So it's kind of like the idea of getting a citation, and you're able to find all that. Now, of course, everything has a free version, and that's the one caveat. During the challenge, I used all the free or trial versions. Yep. So we actually got a bit of a Twitter stream or an X stream going on about this particular product, and there's limitations. So if you pay for it, you get all the bells and whistles, and without it, you only have a certain amount of time that you can do experiment with these. But I found a lot of value in that, and I think a lot of other people did as well, because the same thing. I have a 300-page spec PDF, or have to look at the code compliance, so to be able to talk to it, but also the benefit of that citation, so that it can take you to that spot, so you don't have to worry about it lying to you, that it takes you right to that spot so you can see it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. That's so it's kind of like like Find, but through ChatGPT. It's or through prompting through Find, and that is one of the things I noticed even when I was playing with ChatGPT with uploading some documents. Is sometimes I might get the result I wanted, but it was actually like even asking like, well, what page did you find that on? Sometimes I was getting kind of weird results, which is, and it seemed like the data might have been right what they were giving me, but it couldn't tell me the page. And I don't know if it's because of how it was reading the page numbers or whatnot. This was a zoning regulation, so it had weird page numbers. It was like, IIV dash, it was like Roman numerals with numbers. So I think it was freaking it out. But at the same time, I was thinking, well, it's a PDF, right? So PDFs have pages. So why couldn't it use that? So it's kind of interesting. I actually might try that, the same PDF, and put it next to ChatGPT and see how it does. That's cool. So that was called Chat PDF.
Yep.
Awesome. So any other ones that sort of stuck out in your mind as sort of general valuable tools that you didn't know about ahead of time?
That was one. There's one called Rows, just ROWS, and they call it a modern version of a spreadsheet. So think of it like Excel, but it's a built-in database. So it's based in the web. You can do whatever you want, but you can also have like a little ChatGPT window to ask it how to do formulas and how things look and all that put in place. But one of the coolest things is it has a Chrome extension. And with that Chrome extension, you can do a screenshot of any table, and it will instantly turn it into live data so that you can have that table in all the cells put in place.
Wow.
Directly from a page.
Even if it's like an image of a table.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
So that was kind of mind blowing, because the benefit of that, how many times have you tried to do that? Turn it into that and do it all one by one.
Yeah.
And that was able to do.
So neat. So that's Rows, ROWS.
Yep.
Cool. Well, that's really neat. Those both sound valuable in more than just AEC kind of stuff. So
yeah.
And then obviously I would imagine you also learned quite a bit more about ChatGPT and whatnot. And did it also explore some of the so ChatGPT obviously, was any of the other GPT type of models like the co-pilots or the bards or any of those, or was it mostly focused on the ChatGPT for the
I think for the most part they would use ChatGPT as the example, but they would encourage you to explore other ones. So there was Copilot, which is really just ChatGPT,
right?
The good version.
Yeah.
But there's Bard or Gemini. And but the one that I did found throughout this challenge was called Pi, and it's just pi.ai.
Pi.ai. Okay.
Yeah, and
that was the similar thing.
Same idea.
Okay.
It's a different model. So a lot of them out there, a lot of the tools you'll find are all based off of open AI. They all tie into ChatGPT somehow.
Right.
This is its own LLM, large language model, its own database. But its claim to fame is that it's meant to be a humanized version, if you will. And so essentially what that means is that it's not so formal. It's not like talking to a professor. And it also has a voice capability, so it can read the stuff back to you. And you can do that with ChatGPT or the other ones. But the way that it gives you answers is it's like actually having a conversation. And if you're doing things like creating content for blogs or anything like that, for me, it's just a much more pleasant interaction.
Are you dictating the prompts too with your voice or no?
It doesn't let you talk yet, so you can hear it back. But even sometimes, like some of the challenges we were doing coding, or I ended up down a road of doing coding, and so having it talk to you and explain to you step by step. And that was one of the other things that I learned, is whether it was with Pi or any of the other ones, if you tailor your prompt to your expectation, for example, I'm new to coding, explain it to me like I'm a 10-year-old that's coding for the first time. It will do that for you, and it will read it out to you in that style, and it makes it a lot more understandable, easygoing, and that's my cup of tea. So I thought, hey, this is great.
That's great. What about on like the image, video, or 3D model side of it? Was there did it dabble in that, or it stayed most on the text side of it?
We didn't get into any modeling, but we got into image creation. We did a lot of image creation stuff. The one that I liked the best was the Adobe one, Firefly.
Yeah.
It was very cool, the way that you could interact with it. worked really well. Of course, you get 25 free
Yes.
creations during the course of a
I think
month or whatever.
anyone with a Creative Cloud subscription now gets
Yeah,
I think it's an additional fee, but I think you do have still some free stuff beforehand. But I did read a couple things, and I keep getting prompted every time I open like Photoshop or something about it. But
yeah, it does a very good job of creating, especially if you're looking for, and this doesn't surprise me coming from Adobe, but like photorealistic stuff.
yeah,
It can do a really good job of that, and it gives you four options. It gives you a lot of sort of feedback. I mean, the other one that I used a lot was just the free one that comes with Copilot. It gives you access to DALL-E 3,
right.
and on top of that, you can also use Microsoft Designer, so you can get an image and then you can edit the image, which is nice.
Yeah, no, the DALL-E 3, it's come a long way for sure. And so they didn't have you dabble in Midjourney then.
They didn't have us dabble in Midjourney, and again, you can't get in without paying, so I didn't dabble in Midjourney. But I used DALL-E. I used they have one, the Firefly. They have a couple that are based off of, what's that, the gamer platform? Starts with a D.
Oh, Discord.
Thank you.
Yes.
That are based off of Discord, where
Yes.
they'll create an image or a video from it, but they're not as refined.
Yeah,
But the one that I use the most is called Night Cafe.
Night Cafe, which has been around for a little while, I believe, right?
It has been,
Yeah.
and it's basically like a lot of platforms where you can choose whatever backend you want to do, and they charge you a credit.
Got
And
it.
if you like somebody's post or do something, you get credits along the way. But the fact that it gives you all of these different engines and preset criteria, if you're just trying to create an image for a blog post, it's very easy to use.
Awesome. Cool. All right, great. So I think we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to now put our architect, engineer, and contractor goggles on, and start sort of peeling apart maybe as you were going through this, other areas that maybe you could think of how this could improve or be used in our daily lives as specialists in our industry. So first, I'm going to hear a quick word from one of our members at the BIM After Dark community, which is Tom. And for those of you that don't know, the community actually just turned 4 years old this week. So the private community, BIM After Dark community, is officially 4 years old. And so if you haven't heard about it, check out this video, and then I'll tell you where you can learn more.
Yeah, so I'm Tom Flaherty. I'm currently working for a residential design firm called Lifestyle Design. We specialize in production residential for national home builders. Just recently claimed the title of BIM manager. I told my boss, I'm like, hey, I'm doing it anyway. I'm taking this title. He's like, okay, sounds good. I recently got licensed. I'm now licensed architect in Wisconsin and Texas. Because I stumbled up on a couple of videos that you did on YouTube about how to do a standing seam roof, and I still use that hack. And it was just being able to learn that stuff. Everybody uses that term, the hive mind, and that's kind of what it is. You throw something out there, and there's at least one person who's done it or tried it and can guide you along the way, and everybody is so open about sharing everything they've learned, whether it was from you or somebody else. Or it's really made me a lot better modeler, a lot better Revit user, and it frees, and being able to use all these hacks frees up my time to learn other more exciting things.
All right. All right, thanks, Tom. So as I mentioned before, it's actually our 4-year anniversary. Tom has been a member since the very beginning, so bravo, Tom. And if you are interested, head on over to community.bimafterdark.com. You come hang out with me, all the other members, and learn Revit together. So definitely check that out. So let me bring you back in here, Carl. There you are. Sorry for the wait. I know you're going to hear that cool tune that everyone got to hear, but you can always listen to it afterwards. All right, we got some returners in the chat. I was just checking as that ad reel was playing. Not too many big questions. There was a couple questions about if there's a summary of some of the other people who have gone through the challenge and whatnot. I think what I'll do is I'll post the link to your summaries, your three or more blog posts, and then a link to the 100-day challenge website and stuff, so that I'm sure you can find some other folks who went through it. But all right, so as we left off, sort of talking more generally in a couple of tools, now I think I just want to sort of, obviously, as you're going through this, I think if someone who as a software engineer goes through this versus yourself or myself or anyone in this audience, I have a feeling that we'll be thinking peripherally about other ways that we can use any of these tools as going through. So I guess I'm kind of interested as you would be going through this, was there, what came to mind with the AEC side of it, and maybe some discoveries you made, some ideas you had, or some, maybe even some limitations that you're finding of those who don't know much about it, what it could do for us as far as these tools are concerned.
Yeah, and that was one of the things, as I was going through it the first couple of weeks, the first couple of challenges where you're just learning new tools, you're like, hey, this is cool. But as we started getting further on, we were doing the missions, and I'm like, this is all geared towards, marketing agencies or content makers or whatever. It got to be a little bit frustrating, because I'm like, I'm not learning anything that's relevant to what I do. But that was kind of like a turning point where I started to look, well, what if I start to try to look at it from the lens of what can it do for me, and then looking at what I'm going to do that's not typical stuff, because we're not doing, if you were on an architecture firm, an engineering firm, you're not inside of Revit or whatever 24 hours a day. So there's other things you need to do that. So maybe it could help you do your social media posts, or it could help you with your LinkedIn reviews, or it could help you with your automating tasks, like one of the things we created was taking your emails and putting them and ranking them. So AI would rank the email based on the subject line. Is this a green, a yellow, or a red? And so you actually would have it come up, and you could just read the emails that are important to you, and that would all happen in the background. So that would be very valuable for a very busy person in an architecture firm, right?
Yeah, I definitely could see that. And I mean, even the PDF side of it, like you were talking about, like reading large documents. I think, there's a lot of reading and writing in AEC, right? Especially when it comes to maybe the business development side, where you've got RFPs, you have contracts, you have that kind of stuff. And I definitely think it could be valuable to have an AI tool sort of digest that for you, summarize it, and then sort of, especially if you have a lot of it to read or something like that. But no, that is interesting. I guess even though this wasn't geared towards us, so to speak, was there any like sort of moments where you thought this could be tweaked a little bit and be actually used more towards the architecture side of it, or the engineering contractor side of it, just with a little bit, as far as less marketing stuff and more I don't know, on the software side or productivity side?
Yeah, I think some of it, again, a lot of it was geared towards that side, but learning how to use things like Zapier, which has been around for a long time. But now you're able to tie that into your things like OpenAI. The other thing that you start to learn, and this isn't specific to the AECO, but it's very big inside of that, is the idea that where you put your stuff. And what I mean by that is that, it's great to have a tool like ChatGPT, but if you're putting a bunch of information in there about clients and stuff, where does that end up? And so that brings in things like Copilot. And if you purchase Copilot, and now you don't have to purchase it, just if you're a user with a Microsoft 365 enterprise account or business account, you'll notice when you log into Copilot, there's a great big flag in the top corner that says information protected. And so none of your information that's put in that particular pile goes outside of your organization. And that's something that would be very valuable for everyone inside the industry as well. Again, it's not doing a GPT inside of Revit,
Right.
but it gives you the idea of how you can handle that stuff and make use of it because you're not scared to use it now.
And then so then as far as the sort of prompt I don't want to say prompt engineering. I hate that term, but I guess we'll say prompt engineering. I don't know. I don't know what it is about that term. It just kind of bothers me. Maybe the idea that putting engineering architect in front of things and behind things just kind of annoys me. But but I guess that sort of art form, sort of like you said, you start to sort of understand how to speak to AI. Do you think that is going to be something that's a useful skill for all of us, given that, it seems like we're going that direction where a lot of Revit, right? Any of the tools we're already using, the web-based tools, right? There's going to be a format where we're actually doing this sort of input. And so, do you feel like, especially going through this, do you feel like that's where the direction of all these things? I just mentioned it before. I was on a bank site, and like I felt like I was prompting in ChatGPT when trying to get like the right result from this basically tech support chat thing, right? Is that a feeling? Like, do you feel like that's where things are going to go?
I think so. And again, eventually we'll get beyond that. The technology will get smarter. The hardware will get faster. I think that's going to be the limitation. Just like for years, you couldn't get real good rendering inside of Revit. It wasn't a software limitation. It was a hardware. I think we're going to run into that same thing with AI. It's going to develop quicker than the computers and the chips that they're all fighting to build are available for us. But in that meantime, and it's not a couple months, it's going to be years, learning how to prompt and understanding a prompt. And probably even more important, or a more valuable skill, would be understanding what came back from the AI. Is it hallucinating? Is it valuable? Do I need to cite it? All those things that come into play. That's going to be the valuable.
Can you maybe, especially since you've just gone through it, maybe expand again for folks, because I know Dan, who was on the episode a couple weeks ago with Revit Wizard, he kind of talked about, but maybe expand a little more on that hallucination idea, because I think it's something that's important. And I think, again, I haven't spent 100 days, 30 minutes a day, but I've spent quite a bit of time in ChatGPT. So I understand that concept of sort of and I don't want to say trial and error, but really like trying to figure out the response and what the right way to ask things are. But can you just sort of explain to people again what at least your idea of what hallucination means in this AI world that we live in now?
Sure. So hallucination is the term that someone in the AI world decided to
I know, what a weird term, right?
when AI makes stuff up.
Right.
And essentially what's happening is that whatever AI you're using, you ask it a question and it doesn't know the answer, but it knows enough about other things to tell you a story, which could be an answer. And sometimes it's very blatant that that's not right, but other times it's not so much. And that's why you sort of need to be able to read that. And I don't know if I want to say it's become a problem, but I'm sure many people watching have heard of the add-in Grammarly, I can't spell to save my life, so it's a great little tool.
Oh, yeah.
But they actually have an add-in that's included now that when you're in ChatGPT, it pops up and it will get a citation for you. It will actually cite because it can access the internet, but the free version of ChatGPT can't. But the idea behind that hallucinating is the fact that it's trying its best to give you an answer.
Right.
And the two skills you need to take away from that are being able to tell if it's hallucinating, but the second is being able to actually let it know that it's hallucinating.
Right.
So believe it or not, telling it, oh, I don't think that's right, or giving it the proper citation, that actually helps the model get better. It improves it going forward. So that's part of it. So hallucinating is telling a story. You just need to be able to pick that up.
Would you say that's a skill that you learn quickly, or is it something that it can be challenging? I've definitely seen some hallucinations. Like I actually didn't even, until Dan came on the show, and I think Dan's in the chat. Hey Dan, I didn't even know that was a term, but I know exactly what you're talking about because I've been in it enough to realize it. But did you? I guess through some of these missions and stuff, did you realize that sometimes it's tricky to find those, or was it pretty straightforward?
I think it comes down to your skill set.
Yeah.
You know, like Dan was saying, when he's doing it with stuff inside of Revit, and that's not possible inside of Revit, well, you picked it up right away.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're asking it to give you stats on something you know nothing about, you don't know.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've learned through this is that sometimes you just kind of, your spidey senses tingle a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And what you can do is you can copy that blurb and put it into Copilot, or put it into Pi, or put it in something, and ask it. You ask that other LMM, is this true? And it will tell you if it knows. Like, it will go, and so it'll do that. And you say, is this true? And if so, can you cite it?
Oh, that's fascinating.
Especially the other ones that have, and they will cite it for you, and they will bring it back. So that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I learned, is that there's nothing, you know, it's not like Ford versus Chevy. It's okay to go here and go there. And because they're different models, they're different back ends, they're going to look at the question, and they're going to look at the technology differently.
That's interesting.
And if you happen to have a paid version where you know it can access the internet, ask it, is this true? And ask it to give you the citation.
That's very interesting. I didn't think about that. So because it's a hallucination, in theory, it's not true, right? But it's that models in that current conversation, in that current, you know, it's that way of depicting it. But if you ask the same question to another model fresh, then it may just blatantly tell you, no, that's wrong, because it's looking at it in a different lens. That's
exactly
super interesting. Because I've definitely, and that's why the PDF thing is interesting to you, because as I mentioned before, I've been testing it out with some local zoning regulations. So I uploaded a PDF. This is on ChatGPT, and I asked some specific questions like, what's the side yard setback for R1, you know, R1 residence or R1 dwelling or whatever it was. And like, it kept giving me the wrong answer. Like, it was adamant that this thing was 35 feet. And I'm like, I had the PDF, I knew the table. And so I kept trying. And honestly, I couldn't actually get it to the right answer. It's, and no matter how many things I tried, and maybe if I sat there for a little longer, I would have eventually got it there. But like, it no matter what, it was like adamant that it was 35 feet. I'm like, nah, I'm looking at the table. It's 25 feet. I see it there. And so it was interesting that you said, because I didn't think about maybe trying a couple other models and see what happened, right? See if maybe that actually depicted it differently.
Well, that's a good point, and part of it comes back to what you said there about starting fresh. A different model works, but if you start a new chat inside the same model,
sometimes
it's like
you've
cleared the cache.
Different person, right?
The difference is that you've gone through that. You've had that, you know, those 2 or 3 or 30 interactions where it keeps telling you 35. So now you have the knowledge of maybe how to ask it, and so if you ask it in a new session a different way and you give it information, you'll get a different answer back. And so that's the other thing that I learned, is that starting fresh, but with knowledge that you have, so that it's not wasted time that you had basically arguing with ChatGPT,
right,
but
right.
You learn the nuances, and if you start a new fresh, like clearing the cache on your browser, you're going to get a higher quality answer, and that's the end of what we're looking for, is a higher quality outcome.
So then, have you, now that you've gone through this journey, I think what was it, last week or this week when you finished the 100 days?
The 9th.
Okay, so
yes, last week.
So but yeah, just about 9 days ago. So as you were going through this, thinking about some of the tools that do now exist, like the Veras, the Glyphs, there's a few others out there. Have you now gone and tested and tried some of these other tools out with your newfound knowledge of prompting and some of these nuances of the AI kits that exist?
A little bit. Bill was very nice and reached out to me and gave me access to some of the cool tools they're working on. So Veras and I want to say Guelph, but I know that's not right.
Glyph. Yeah, Glyph.
They're ChatGPT inside Revit. And yeah, it's cool, and it's the idea of having access to that stuff. You know, in the real-time render, basically, but you're able to put it on what you're doing and make those changes. I think it's going to change, and I think we're going to see people bringing it into the industry in little niche markets. And like everything else, people are going to say that we're a little bit slower, but I would hazard them to challenge that we're a little bit more precise. We don't need 50 other content creation, things for LinkedIn or whatever, but people spend a little more time and they're taking us down a road that's relevant to us. How to read specs, how to,
drawings.
Determine that's a big one.
Right.
And actually, in one of the Twitter feeds where we were talking about the chat PDF,
Mm-hmm.
everyone was trying with drawings, and the problem is that when you turn the dimension,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't understand how to read.
When the text is
someone-
when the text is 90, it freaks out.
It freaks out. So someone to spend some time training it to do that, I think would come into play.
Yeah, no, I think to me that's when I think about what we do and beyond sort of the visualization side of it and that, but I think the amount of data and the amount of information that exists within drawings, within specs, within projects, right? RFIs, submittals, emails, right? You go down the list, like the amount of data that exists. How nice would it be to have a way to not have to manually search for that one thing in that one spec or that one submittal by that one person to find the answer of it? You know, what's the dimension of, the XYZ piece of equipment, in according to the submittal, right? And then instead of chasing down submittal numbers through all the different document management systems or chasing down that email and stuff, and then drawing QA/QC, like that's why these PDF readers. And I was surprised actually even on ChatGPT, and I don't know on the Chat PDF side of it, but does it also do OCR? So if it's an image PDF, you know what I mean, like a scanned PDF where it's not real text, does it actually seem to read it okay or no?
It does all right. It's not as good as the original, but it does do OCR as well. And they're not the only ones that do that. I think it's become very popular. Like if you have the paid versions of most of the those, you can do that. And someone even put in the chat here that with the Gemini, they have a notebook LM. So if you go into that one, it's sort of the other one. It gives you the ability to upload a PDF. It also gives you a much larger character load, which if you've looked at ChatGPT or any of these ones, you can put in I think it's 4,000 characters as a limit.
Okay.
If you use that notebook LM version, it's 18,000.
18,000 characters?
Yeah, and that's a lot more if you're copying and pasting a couple pages, or if you're doing coding.
Right.
It's a lot more lines of code you can get in there, and there's no additional charge for that. It's just a different back end.
Yeah. So Rick asked in the chat, and I think this is a question that I think probably is worth talking about, and beyond just, so he's asking about Newforma, but I think beyond Newforma, within whether it's Newforma, ACC, Procore, whatever else is out there now. But he said, doesn't Newforma have products that search emails for data? So first, I guess, does Newforma have products that search email for data?
Yes.
And then the follow-up is, but is that AI?
So, and that's the tricky question. So everyone sort of says, AI is new,
right?
But it's not. It's been around. It's been around for a while, and AI just means artificial intelligence. It's a great, big, huge, general umbrella. And what everyone's getting excited about now is just basically machine learning.
Right.
We're teaching a computer to sort of look at something, study it, and then give you an answer. It's like teaching a kid in school. And what Newforma uses is on our back end. It's something called Elasticsearch. So it's something that AWS allows people to do, but the idea is that it searches for more than just a title or something like that. It's able to search data specifically.
Right.
So as opposed to like OCR where you're looking at a character, it's actually able to search the data.
Yeah, and I think it was a good question because it also sort of expands to this idea of everything's AI now, right? And so it's almost like you have to ask the questions. When even when software folks are trying to sell you on something, everyone's calling everything AI. But I think there might be some high-end search tools in a lot of these tools, but there's still not a lot of them are necessarily pulling in machine learning and large language models into it yet. And one of the things I think of is Upcodes. So Upcodes, for anyone who doesn't know, has a built-in Copilot tool now if you pay for it, beyond the standard. I think there's 3 levels now of paying. Upcodes has had search forever, right? Where it's just searching. It was a decent search engine, but it was searching the codes, right? It was searching, like you're saying, it's searching for text, for keywords, for exact text, depending on how you want to search it. It was searching, right? But now, with Copilot, which I believe it's probably a OpenAI backend. I'm not really sure, but it probably is. It's different, right? So you're not searching for table 671 or egress chapter 16 egress or whatever, you're asking a question and it's searching the data and then it's giving you a response. So if you guys haven't tried it, I definitely highly suggest you try it out, especially the architects out there who do a lot of code work. I just recently did a project that required existing building, the international existing building code, which is something I barely dealt with, and I could not have done it without without Copilot. I have to be completely honest with you. It was super helpful. But that's to me is the difference, right? It's understanding the difference between the search and the actual machine learning / large language model, like doing that. And the second you do both, like if you open both, the search tool, it still exists in Upcodes, and then you open Copilot and then you try it, like you immediately can start seeing what I'm talking about for the difference. It's like you're asking somebody who knows everything about the codes to answer a question about it instead of searching for a specific term.
And that's exactly it. The idea that you can ask it a question, but the biggest takeaway is that it can summarize. So the search functionality is look for XYZ. So it pans the document and finds you all the places for XYZ. But if it's a 1,000-page document, you need to summarize the land use bylaw for whatever. That's what the current AI can do, is that it can take the information, it can summarize it, it can do it quickly. It can do it quickly,
and like with code is a great example, because what it does is it'll reference other sections and talk about, because anyone who's dealt with code, I'm sure a lot of people here have done stuff with building codes. There's it's usually not just chapter 1, it's like you go here, you look at this, and then you're also referencing maybe 3 other sections, maybe other different codes, the energy code, the building code, the fire code, right? And so what it does is in the response, it's doing exactly what you're saying. It's not just giving you here's page 16 on IBC 2020. It's telling you, here's the summarization of what that says, and then here's some references, and this is also what you need to think of and whatnot. So that's just, to me, it's just such a perfect example for us of where these things can come into play. And so the same, imagine that happening on a project level. That's what I think of, like if you jumped into a project right now that you didn't know anything about, right? And your job in the next week is to understand everything about this project before it starts getting built or before design completes or whatever. Maybe you're doing CA and you get thrown on the job, right? You can sit there and probably learn so much more by just having a conversation with an AI tool that knows it before, and you can say, hey, what is is there spray on fireproofing in this job? What spec sections are talking about it? Is there this on the job? And then instead of it just showing you, it's going to give you a summarization of all the information that talks about it.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And one of the things, and someone just put it in the chat, made me think of this, but you were talking about sort of things for the industry. There's been someone that's put together, and very similar to what Dan did with the the Revit GPT, is they put together an open BIM GPT. And so any sort of the terminology about IFC or BCF or any sort of that sort of thing, they created and trained an entire GPT to be able to do that. And the idea behind that, can you imagine if somebody went out there in your life, in my previous life working with clients and with owners, if someone put together a GPT that they could just type in what they want and it would translate the BIM code, and so they're not asking for things BIM level 5,000 that they don't really need,
right?
Something like that, to be able to do it. So there's definitely applications that we can use in the industry over and above making our actual job of creating the drawings easier, but dealing with the people outside of the industry that don't know what it is. If they can understand the technology, that's a win for everyone.
And my mind is, for the past few months, has been just thinking about the database side of Revit and how even that, right, that's data, right? And so yeah, I don't think anyone's done it yet, but I think training a model to be able to, or training a model. Here I go. Training a language model, I guess. So not a Revit model. Training a model to learn how to read a model. To be able to take, whether it's like the OBD, whatever database, or some sort of form of the database that comes out, and be able to translate that into like actual communication about what's in it, is like that. I think that's where I can start seeing like this stuff becoming super valuable for us, for sure. I think
it's.
Go ahead.
There's sort of no end to how that can be helpful. But it's the people to take that time and to put it together, because there's a barrier between what I did, learning a tool and learning how to prompt something versus that next level of getting a little bit further into the back end of the code where you're not necessarily coding, but you're sort of gone beyond that. That makes all of the difference of what we're coming into play, and how we do all those things and bring them in is when we bring that stuff in there and we see what's involved. So that's kind of how all of that comes into play and how we bring that in. So yes, the short answer is that definitely there's value into it, but there's time that has to get into it. And people, we've come to the idea that this stuff is super easy, so somebody should just make that for us.
Yes, of course. Of course. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, equate, for those that are outside of our circles and hear AI and start seeing all the simplicity, then yeah, there's definitely going to be an issue with understanding how this does or doesn't improve our process. And then the what now used to be one click, clients get, it takes you one click to render the building or design it. It's now going to be like one prompt, or can't you just have AI do it for me or something, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's an unfortunate piece. So long story short, for all the architects, engineers, contractors that watch this show and will watch it in the future, do you think it's worth running through the 100-day challenge for them?
I think so, especially if you're curious. So if you're wondering about AI, you're wondering about that, 30 minutes a day, and you can certainly spend longer. There was a few challenges where I got down on the weeds working with AI to do some coding stuff that you can spend more time in there. But if you think you're going to learn how to improve your something in the AEC, that's not what this is. But to improve your knowledge and understanding how to make prompts, it's definitely worth it. And what it might do is spark the interest for you to make that GPT, or you could be the next Revit wizard out there making one for Navisworks, or whatever it might be, to bring it into place. So you never know what you'll get out of it.
I love that. No, that's awesome, and I think that would be exactly the reason why I would do it as well. Is to me similar to Dynamo, right? That's how Dynamo was in the beginning. It's like you needed sort of a reason to learn it initially, and so you couldn't, like you said, spiral buildings or whatever. I don't see any use for it. But the second, I guarantee every user out there who has finally dipped their toe in and learned it a little bit, the second you learn a couple things, it's the light bulb goes off, and you're like, oh, I could do this to help that. I could do that to help this. Maybe it can help me with this. And so that's kind of why I was super excited, especially when you started talking about the micro learning part of it. So super cool, man. Well, I want to thank you for coming on and chatting about this and introducing us to a bunch of new tools, which I'll put links below. Other than the BIMsider blog, which I will link below. I know you're in the process of starting you started a new podcast, and I'm not sure if there's anything else you'd like to let folks know about while you're here live and in the future. First, the new podcast. Where can they go listen to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the plug.
Of course.
Wrenches, Gadgets, and Hacks. You can go out there and find it anywhere that you listen to podcasts. We're also on the YouTubes, as my friend Bill used to say. And really, the idea behind that is just people that are curious and creative in the AECO. So it's not just about what we do on the clock, but also what we do off the clock. So that's definitely out there. We're just wrapping up the first series, nice little 6-episode chunks. So be sure to find that and see what's coming out.
Awesome.
So that's it. A couple other sort of AI things to mention before we leave here. We talked about searching. If you haven't tried the tool Perplexity,
okay,
definitely look for that. So Perplexity is basically Google for AI. And it's not, you can chat to it, but it's not like ChatGPT. When you chat to it, it goes out and finds you information just like you would at a Google search, but it finds information about what you're looking for. And it's very cool. And it's also another option if you think you're getting hallucinations, because it will find you and cite you the information. So, for example, if we were to go in here and say, who's the best goalie? Yes, I'm from Canada. And if you could spell it right. Like this, and you hit search. So it goes through and finds this information, and it's looking for all this data. Thank you. Or not. This is the beauty of real live information here.
So it looks like it's trying to do something.
It's trying to do something. Fine, I'll make it a pro search.
Maybe I clear your cache.
Yeah, maybe that's it. There we go.
So this is,
Look at this.
while he's typing it in, it's perplexity.ai. And I'll try to remember to get all these links in there. And if I miss any, Carl will let me know. So we'll make sure we get them all in there.
Absolutely. And the idea with this, it also comes with a, if you're doing Chrome, it'll do that, so it'll automatically find the information for you. But the idea is sort of, you can see here, eventually I knew I'd get there. So it's going to answer the question. But like, it goes through and it finds data, it ranks them all based off of that. It shows you images, it gives you all the stuff. So imagine if you're, what's the building code of New York City? When did this building code come into play?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like an AI platform, but it's searching the information. And they have a little plugin that basically allows you, so as you're going through, to ask a question and focus on something as you're actually going through.
Will it focus on a page that you're on too if you want to?
Exactly.
That's
and the
really
other
neat.
cool thing is that's the library part over here. That when you get into the paid version, you can start saving tabs. And then it starts giving you information on pages that you've saved. Like how many of you, and I have thousands of them, have a bunch of websites you have saved that you forget what they're there for. So now you can use a tool like this. And there's another one called Flex something. I'll find the name. Where you can do a query on pages that you've saved. So again, you have all the different cities and all the different code websites saved. You can now search all of that. It'll open the page. It'll look inside of it. So it gives you kind of the power of doing that.
That's really neat. That's awesome. All right, so perplexity.ai.
Perplexity.
Awesome. Love that. Any last tools before we wrap up that you really wanted to share?
Ask CSV. Very similar to chat with PDF, except you upload a CSV and you can have a conversation with your
that's
Excel
cool.
file, your CSV.
Yeah.
And the other one is
wait, CSV, don't forget, you can export Revit schedules to CSV.
Ooh, that's a very good point, because then you can load it up there again. There's a free version and a paid version.
Yeah.
But it's very cool because then you can have a conversation. And the nice thing about this is not only do you have a conversation, but whatever you ask it, the reply is visual. Think of it as like a pivot chart inside of Excel.
Okay.
So you see all that data when it comes through. And the last one that I'll share, it's called LLM prompts. And one of the things about working with any of the GPTs is you have to ask questions a certain way. So this is just kind of a template for you to do it. And what you can't do in any of these large language models is save your prompt. You have to type it in every single time. So this allows you to it asks you a question, you fill the data, it gives you the prompt at the bottom, you copy and paste. But then you can also save a prompt. So if you have one you always use, you can save it, create a template, and then use it over and over again. And this is just a student's little project they did. It's free open source on GitHub. Anyone can use it. But you'd be surprised how often you come back and reuse this when you're using a prompt over and over and over again. So little things like this where people just had a little niche that they needed to fix. It's a simple, well, I say this because I didn't create it, but it seems like a simple piece of code to be able to do this on the back end.
Awesome. LLM prompting.
Yes, it's
cool.
weird because it's not a website. It's in behind. I'll send you the link so you can share it with everyone.
Awesome. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, like I said, I will try and put all the links in, and then if I miss any, just shoot them to me, Carl, and I'll make sure they go into the description. Thanks again for joining us. So I'll also put a link to, of course, the BIMsider blog. I'll put a link to your Twitter handle, and then also to the Gadgets, Wrenches, and Hacks, right?
Almost. Wrenches, Gadgets,
and Hats podcast. For sure, man. So thank you, Carl, again for joining us. I really appreciate it. This has been an awesome conversation. Hope it was enlightening for the audience as well. There's some good conversations going on in the chat. So with that, have a good weekend, everyone, and we'll talk to you next time. All right. See you.
Thanks, everyone.